Hey, Steve Mignonti here in a private physical therapy clinic because I got encephalitis back in September and haven't been able to do new videos for the Junkyard Crawl. But in the meantime, we figure something's better than nothing. And a lot of people don't realize that we've got something like 330 videos in the channel playlist for the Steve Mignonti YouTube channel. So if you're having withdrawal from no new videos, you can actually check out some of the classics that you might not have seen before. And in the meantime, before we get rolling with this, we're going to run a bunch of heavy-duty truck videos in a string of maybe 10 of them. So every day you'll get a good fix of Mack trucks, Diamond T's, Rios, Peterbilts. Well, no Peterbilts, actually. Those are a little too big for the junkyard. But basically Ford and GMC, even Toro Flow V6 diesels. Crazy stuff. So we're going to run those things in the next several days. So please stay tuned to the Steve Magg's YouTube channel. By all means, give us a thumbs up. And quickly, I want to thank Rick DeBrule and Tyler Hoover for keeping the channel alive in December and January and really stepping up. So thanks, guys. Well, roll the tape. Steve Mignonti here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Berniston Auto Wrecking in Berniston, Massachusetts with a Mack truck. Now here's the funny thing. I remember these things started to hit the road in the late 1970s. I think that doesn't really look like a Mack truck. It looks foreign. Well, I mean, let's add up the clues. We have the word Mack on the front. The rear view mirrors have Mack logos in them. You know, I mean, it says Mack, right? So let's dig in a little deeper. We come around to the side and a very convenient cab over, great for inner city use, maneuverability. You're sitting over the tires. You can actually get into alleyways and stuff way better than you could on a conventional with the long hood out in front. So let's open that door and learn more. I like that. Open that door and learn more. It rhymes. But look at this. Vehicle identification number. Chassis cab manufactured by Renault Vehicle Industries. It's a Renault. I guess I'll have to say there's Renault way. I would have imagined that's the case. But if we take a look to the right, we'll see another tag that says up top, Renault Vehicles Industries, care of Mack trucks. Here's the story. In the late 70s, the American trucking industry and truck manufacturers were on hard times. There was a recession, things were ugly, and Mack actually took a 10% ownership. Renault stepped in, I should say, and took 10% ownership of Mack in 1979. By 1990, that grew to 100%. So Mack and Renault were in bed together, so to speak, as of 1979, which explains this 1983 Mack Midliner, which is a basically brand or badge engineered Renault truck, or Renault, as they say in France. We look inside of this thing, we see classic European stuff. I'll come around to your left, Shane, and look at how things like the horn is a little button you push down. No chain above the driver's head like a real Mack truck, and little toggles for things like wipers, and even the shifter. It's got a manual transmission, but there's a little French tickler stood on top of that. It's kind of weird. That used to be a red plastic shift indicator, I guess. It's just degraded in the sun, but this is where you'd shift that transmission that's located underneath. But again, the beauty of this cab is that it was universal. This was made in Europe, and Volvo also used this very same cab with Volvo nomenclature on it, but with Volvo diesel engines. Getting to that diesel engine, well, there it is right there. Now, we got to remember that Mack was one of the few American truck makers that made their own engines in the 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s. But this is a Renault engine. Now, there were two possibilities, a 5.5 or an 8.8 liter inline six. Not sure which one that is, but it is a turbo diesel. But something kind of interesting is the American Spicer transmission. We come to the back here, and there is the Spicer name cast into the top of the transmission case. So that is an American item right there, the tranny. Spicer, of course, the manufacturer, I believe, from Michigan based, but they also make Dana axles, the Dana 60 and Roadrunners, and that kind of thing. But Spicer, a big name in truck transmissions as well. But this is a Renault turbo diesel. Now, the beauty of this thing is how things are accessible from outside. The coolant is this big jug right here. To add liquid to the radiator, you just unscrew this puppy right here, add it, and it says here, make sure, wait for complete blow off, unscrew one turn and wait for complete blow off. There you have it right there. So it's vented. And again, so you don't get boil over on your hands or your face. But again, This is a six-wheeler, and again, as a cab and chassis. This was built at Renault, and then shipped here without a bed or any kind of a structure on the back. Again, the cab and chassis. It was then fitted with a Henderson Chief hydraulic dump. That is the piston and actuator. This would have had a probably a flatbed or a dump bed, and here are the pins right here. And it's crazy to think that these puppies right here, this metal pin right here, was the pivot point for whatever bed used to articulate on the back of this thing. But there it is. Let's go around the other side here. And as we make our way, you know, you got to love or hate these things. These are the backup beeper horns. I love them and I hate them. These things always go off at 3 a.m. in hotel parking lots, and they wake me up. You know how that goes. But again, they keep people from getting crunched as trucks back up with terrible rearward visibility. The tires on this, appropriately enough, are Michelins. Yes, they're French, as is the rest of this Mack truck, wearing the badges of the Allentown, Pennsylvania truck maker. Massive Snyder Tank Company diesel. Snyder tank made in Buffalo, New York. So it's possible this is either an aftermarket upsized tank, or Renault shipped these without fuel tanks. Not sure. The truck ain't talking. But inside this area here, we see here the dipstick to check the engine oil. Look at this thing right here. Pull this all the way out, this cable. It's flexible. And then you can see how much oil there is on in your 8.8 or 5.5 liter Turbo 6 diesel. And if it's time to add some oil, well, you're not going to flip the cab. That would take a little more time than you want to deal with. So instead, you would just unscrew this puppy here, and then there's the cork. You'd add your oil right in there, down inside the crankcase. This probably takes 25 quarts, I would have to imagine, or sorry, make that liters. This is a French engine after all. But it's funny how you see all these little Mack truck trademark items all over it, including here, the electrical outlet right here, this puppy right here, Mack. This is for the engine heater. This, if you park this thing overnight, you'd plug in your outlet right there and let the block warm up at night. But again, Mack there, Mack on the mirrors. So it's kind of an interesting hybrid. But you got to remember, badge engineering is nothing new. In the auto industry, you got to remember that, of course, things like the Dodge Colt, the Plymouth Cricket, were European cars brought here and given a badge that seemed domestic. And that's what Mack trucks did with the Midliner in 1979 onward. Now this one has had its time. Now no aluminum here, by the way. A lot of truck cabs are aluminum, lightweight. This is all steel. In fact, this is a New England relic. You can see right here, I'm not going to peel this, but there's a lot of plastic filler on this. So along the lines, this truck has been through a bunch of owners, certainly, and the plastic filler has come out to bring new life to the old truck. But you got to dig little details like these cab corner rubber bumpers right here. These are not metal, they're made of rubber, probably a function of European pedestrian safety laws where metal wasn't cool, but soft rubber was okay. I think either way, getting hit by a Mack truck's not going to be a good thing. But again, an interesting combination of American and European. And one last detail that's kind of telling as to this truck's European roots are how the wipers are located here for this left-hand drive version, but there are dimples here where they could just as easily have punched out the holes to give it right-hand facing wipers for a right-hand drive European truck. So that's the story of the Mack. Not so much a bulldog, maybe this one's a bullfrog. Kidding, I love you guys, you French people, it's wonderful. But with that said, that's what Mack was doing to stay alive. They had to basically align themselves with French auto and truck maker Renault. And I would say that there's no way I'd believe that if I didn't look closer. That's why we always have to say the junkyard is more than a junkyard. It's a classroom, whether you're talking trucks or cars. Now, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel.